The hospital room smelled like antiseptic and something else, something I couldn't name but recognized. Death has a scent, sterile, final. It clings to the air even after the machines stop beeping. I held my mother's hand as her chest rose one last time. Her skin was paper thin, almost translucent under the fluorescent lights. I could see every vein, every age spot, every story her body had lived. Her wedding ring, loose now after months of weight loss, caught the light as her fingers went slack in mine. "I love you, Mama," I whispered. "You can rest now." The monitor's steady rhythm became a single, endless tone. Nurse Lucia reached over gently and pressed a button, silencing it. The quiet that followed was enormous. It filled the room like water, drowning everything. "I'm so sorry, Elena," Lucia said softly, her hand on my shoulder. "She's at peace now." Peace. I wanted to believe that. I wanted to believe my mother had finally escaped the pain that had ravaged her body these last months. But even in that sacred moment, something felt wrong. Where was Cynthia? My sister had been here yesterday, hovering, controlling who could visit when I could call. And now, when it mattered most, she was nowhere. I smoothed my mother's silver hair back from her forehead one last time. Her face looked younger somehow, the tension finally gone. I memorized it, the slight curve of her nose, the lines around her eyes from 60 years of smiling. This was the last time I'd see her like this. Tomorrow she'd be gone, prepared by strangers, dressed in clothes she'd never chosen. "Take all the time you need," Lucia said, backing toward the door. But I didn't get time. The door swung open exactly 4 minutes after my mother died. I know because I was staring at the clock, watching the second hand sweep, trying to understand how the world could just keep moving when mine had stopped. Cynthia walked in first. She wore black, of course she did. A designer dress I recognized from Nordstrom's window last month. $1,500 at least. Her makeup was perfect, not a tear track in sight. Behind her came Harold, her husband, carrying a leather portfolio like he was walking into a business meeting. "Elena," Cynthia said. Not, "I'm sorry," not, "Is she gone?" Just my name, flat and businesslike. I stood up slowly, still holding Mama's hand. "Cynthia, you're here." "Of course I'm here." She glanced at our mother's body, barely a glance, then back at me. "We need to talk." "Now," my voice cracked. "Mama just... she's still." "Elena, there's no time for tears." Cynthia's tone was sharp, impatient. She nodded at Harold, who stepped forward and placed the portfolio on the bedside table, right next to the water cup Mama would never drink from again. "We have legal matters to settle." I stared at her. At this woman who shared my DNA, my childhood, my parents. This stranger in a designer dress who couldn't wait for our mother's body to cool before talking business. "Legal matters," I repeated. Harold opened the portfolio with practiced efficiency. He pulled out a document, several pages thick, and held it up. "This is a property transfer deed," he said, in that smooth lawyer voice of his. Never mind that he'd been disbarred for fraud 8 years ago. "Your mother signed it last week." My heart started pounding. "Signed what?" Cynthia stepped closer, and I could smell her perfume, something expensive and cloying. "The summer house, Elena. Mama signed it over to me. All of it." The room tilted. "That's not... she wouldn't..." "She did." Cynthia's smile was thin, triumphant. "She said you already have enough. And your business, your perfect marriage, your comfortable life in Lexington. She said I deserved a reward for taking care of her these last few months." Taking care of her. The words were acid in my ears. I'd been trying to visit for months, calling every day, and Cynthia had been the gatekeeper. "Mama's sleeping." "Mama's not feeling up to it." "Maybe tomorrow, Elena." "Let me see that," I said. Harold handed me the document. My hands were shaking as I scanned it. Legal jargon, property descriptions, and there, on page 3, my mother's signature. except it wasn't just her signature. My breath caught. Above the R in Rose Martinez, barely visible, was a tiny dot, smaller than a freckle. Most people wouldn't even notice it. But I did, because when I was 8 years old and afraid of my third-grade teacher, Mama and I had created a code. If either of us was scared, if someone was forcing us to do something, we'd make a tiny mark above our name, a dot, a cry for help that only we would understand. I looked up at Cynthia. She was watching me with those cold blue eyes, waiting for me to break down, to accept defeat. I didn't. "I need some air," I said, folding the document carefully. "I'll look at this later." "Elena, we need to—" "Later, Cynthia." I walked past her, past Harold, past the body of the woman who'd raised me, taught me, loved me. I walked out of that hospital room with my mother's final message burning in my hand. The parking lot was empty except for my car, and a few others scattered under the yellow streetlights. It was 11:47 p.m. The Cape Cod night air was cold, carrying the salt smell of the ocean 2 miles away. I sat in my driver's seat and turned on the dome light. My hands were steadier now. I unfolded the deed and examined my mother's signature under the bright LED. There it was, the dot, deliberate, precise. She'd been trying to tell me something. I pulled out my phone and called Robert. He answered on the first ring. "Elena? Sweetheart, is she—" "She's gone," I said. My voice was surprisingly calm. "She died about 20 minutes ago. Oh, honey, I'm so sorry. I'm getting in the car right now. I'll be there in 40 minutes. Robert, Cynthia showed up with a property deed. She says Mama signed the summer house over to her." Silence. Then, "What?" "And the signature has the dot." More silence. Robert knew about the code. I'd told him years ago, one night when we were first married, and I was explaining my complicated relationship with my mother, the way we'd always protected each other. "You're sure?" he asked. "I'm sure." I stared at that tiny mark. Mama was trying to tell me she was being forced. This signature is a cry for help, Robert, and I'm going to find out exactly what happened. "Elena, if Cynthia forged—" "She didn't forge it. That's Mama's handwriting. But someone made her sign. Someone scared her badly enough that she used our code." I felt something cold and hard settling in my chest. Determination, rage. I'm going to prove it. "What do you need me to do?" "Come get me, take me home, and tomorrow I'm going to start digging." I hung up and sat there in the darkness, holding that document. Somewhere inside the hospital, they were preparing my mother's body. Somewhere in Cape Cod, Cynthia and Harold were probably celebrating. And somewhere, in a diary, a video, a witness statement, was the truth. I was going to find it. Blood makes you related, I thought, but it doesn't make you family. And I was done letting Cynthia steal what was mine, what was Mama's, what was right. The fight had just begun. Before we continue the story, leave a like and comment your age and where you're watching from. I'd love to see how far this story has reached. The funeral was everything my mother would have hated. Cynthia had chosen St. Catherine's instead of Mama's beloved seaside community church. More elegant, she'd said. More expensive, she'd meant. The flowers alone probably cost $5,000. White roses and lilies arranged in towering displays that screamed, "Look at how much I loved her." I sat in the front pew next to Robert, watching my sister perform. And it was a performance. Cynthia stood at the pulpit in a black St. John suit, dabbing at her eyes with a lace handkerchief. Her voice trembled at exactly the right moments as she spoke about sacrifice and devotion and being there when it mattered most. "My mother was my best friend," Cynthia said, and I felt Robert's hand tighten on mine. These last 6 months, caring for her, were the greatest privilege of my life. Yes, it was hard. Yes, I gave up so much. But that's what you do for the people you love. I wanted to stand up and scream, to tell everyone here that Cynthia had isolated our mother, controlled her access to family, turned her final months into a prison. But I sat still, hands folded, face composed, Let her think she'd won. Let her feel safe, because I'd spent the last 3 days preparing. Elena would like to say a few words, Pastor Jim announced. I stood and walked to the pulpit. The church was full. Mama had touched so many lives. I saw her book club friends in the 3rd row, tears streaming. Her neighbor, Mrs. Chen from the summer house. The nurses from Sunset Palms. Lucia was there too, in the back, and when our eyes met, she nodded slightly. I unfolded a piece of paper. Not a eulogy I'd written. Something else. My mother taught me that truth matters, I began. My voice was steady. She taught me that family means protecting each other, that love isn't just words, it's action. I looked directly at Cynthia. She also taught me that silence in the face of injustice makes you complicit. Cynthia's smile faltered. So I'm going to honor my mother the way she would have wanted, by telling the truth, by fighting for what's right, by making sure her final wishes, her real wishes, are respected. I paused. Even if it takes everything I have. I folded the paper and returned to my seat. The church was silent except for someone coughing in the back. Harold was staring at me, his jaw tight. Cynthia looked like she wanted to speak but couldn't find the words. Good. Let them wonder. Let them worry. After the service, after the cemetery, after the reception where Cynthia accepted condolences like a martyr, I drove to the summer house alone. The key still worked. Of course it did. Cynthia hadn't changed the locks yet. She was too confident, too sure that her piece of paper was enough. The house smelled like Mama, that mix of lavender soap and the vanilla candles she loved. I stood in the foyer and let the grief wash over me properly for the first time since the hospital. Here, where Mama had been happy. Where we'd spent summers swimming and reading and laughing on the porch. Where Cynthia had turned her last months into a nightmare. I climbed the stairs to Mama's bedroom. Cynthia had already started packing. Cardboard boxes stacked in the corner, Mama's clothes hanging half removed from the closet. The bed was stripped, the nightstand cleared. It looked violated, erased, but Cynthia didn't know all of Mama's secrets. I went to the antique dresser and opened the top drawer. Mama's jewelry box sat there, rosewood and mother of pearl, the one her own mother had given her. I lifted it out carefully and set it on the bed. The box looked simple. Velvet-lined compartments holding Mama's modest collection, her wedding ring set, a string of pearls, a few pairs of earrings. But when I was 12, Mama had shown me the false bottom. For important things, she'd said with a wink, things that matter. I pressed the hidden spring mechanism. The bottom panel popped up, and there it was, a leather-bound diary, worn and soft with use. My hands trembled as I opened it. Mama's handwriting filled the pages, that elegant cursive she'd learned in Catholic school 70 years ago. The first entry was dated 8 months ago, right when she'd moved into Sunset Palms. March 15th. Cynthia insists I need professional care. Elena wants me to move in with her and Robert in Lexington, but Cynthia says it's too far from my doctors. I don't understand why I can't just stay here, in my own home. I'm not that frail. But Cynthia arranged everything before I could protest. She's very insistent. I flipped forward. April, May, June 3rd. I tried to call Elena today, but Marcus said the phone wasn't working. He promised to fix it, but he never did. I asked the nurse for a phone, but Cynthia arrived right then and said I was confused and needed rest. I'm not confused. I know what's happening. I just don't know how to stop it. My vision blurred. I wiped my eyes and kept reading. July 22nd. Harold came again today. He keeps bringing papers for me to sign. Power of attorney documents, he says. Just a precaution. But when I said I wanted my lawyer, Thomas Chen, to review them, Harold got angry, not yelling, worse, that cold, controlled anger. He said I was being difficult, that Cynthia was sacrificing everything to care for me, and I was being ungrateful. I didn't sign anything. But I'm afraid. August 10th. They took my phone. Cynthia said I kept accidentally calling people in the middle of the night and worrying them. That's not true. I was trying to reach Elena. I need to tell her what's happening, but there's always someone watching, always someone listening. September 1st. Harold showed me bank statements today. He says I've been spending recklessly and he needs to manage my finances. I've never been reckless with money in my life. But the numbers are there, in black and white. Withdrawals I don't remember making. Checks signed in my handwriting, shaky like my hands are now, but mine. How is that possible? I couldn't breathe. I set the diary down and walked to the window, sucking in air. Outside, the ocean was gray under cloudy skies. A storm was coming. My phone rang. Thomas Chen. "Elena," he said without preamble, "I need to see you. Today. Now, if possible. I'm at the summer house. I'll be there in 20 minutes. He paused. "I have Rose's bank records, all of them. And Elena. It's worse than I thought." Thomas Chen had been our family accountant for 2 decades. He'd helped my parents plan their retirement, advised me when I started my business, even did Cynthia's taxes back when she was still pretending to have a job. He was methodical, careful, and completely trustworthy. When I opened the door, he looked 10 years older than the last time I'd seen him. "Thomas, what's wrong?" He came inside and set his briefcase on the dining room table. "I should have called you sooner, months ago, but Rose made me promise not to worry you, and then when I tried to reach you, Cynthia said you and Rose had a falling out. We didn't. Thomas, we never had a falling out." His face went pale. "Oh God. Elena, I'm so sorry. I should have known. Just show me what you found." He opened the briefcase and pulled out a thick folder of bank statements. 8 months ago, Harold Drake became a co-signer on your mother's primary checking account. Rose told me it was just for convenience, since Cynthia was helping manage her bills. Mama would never do that willingly. I know, but the signature on the authorization form was hers, shaky, but hers. He spread out the statements. Once Harold had access, the withdrawals started, small at first, 500 here, 1,000 there, cash withdrawals, then bigger amounts. Look at this. He pointed to a line item from July. $7,000, made out to cash. Another one 2 weeks later, 6,000. Another, 8,000. His finger moved down the page. In 5 months, $47,000 disappeared from your mother's account. I felt sick. Where did it go? I don't know. Cash withdrawals leave no trail, but look at this. He pulled out another document. 3 months ago, Harold had himself added as financial advisor on your mother's investment accounts too. Another $32,000 liquidated. Also cash. Nearly $80,000. Gone. Did you confront them? I asked. I tried. I called Rose directly, finally got through to her room at Sunset Palms. She sounded terrified, Elena. She said everything was fine, but I could hear someone in the background. And then the line went dead. He rubbed his face. That's when I started documenting everything. Every transaction, every suspicious pattern. I was building a case to bring to you, or to authorities, but then Rose died and Cynthia presented that deed. I sat down heavily. This wasn't just coercion, Thomas. This was financial abuse, systematic, planned. It's elder exploitation, he said quietly. A crime. If we can prove Harold and Cynthia were threatening or manipulating Rose, I can prove it. I went to my purse and pulled out the diary. Mama documented everything. Thomas opened it and started reading. With each page, his expression grew darker. Finally, he looked up. This is evidence of duress, combined with the financial records, the pattern of isolation, the forced signature on the deed. Elena, you have a case. A strong case. What do I need to do? First, we need a lawyer. A good one who specializes in elder law and estate disputes. Second, we need every piece of evidence we can find. The diary, the bank records, witness statements. I think I have a witness, I said, thinking of Nurse Lucia. Someone who saw what was happening. Get her statement. Get everything. Thomas started packing up his papers. And Elena? Be careful. If Harold realizes you're building a case, if he knows what you have, he's already proven he's willing to forge documents and steal. I don't know what else he's capable of. After he left, I stood in Mama's bedroom holding her diary. Outside, the storm had arrived. Rain battered the windows. Thunder rumbled over the ocean. Cynthia and Harold thought they'd won. They thought a forged deed and a dead woman's signature were enough. They didn't know about the dot, the diary, the bank records, the witness. They didn't know that I was my mother's daughter, and she'd taught me to fight smart, not loud. I pulled out my phone and texted Lucia. "Can we meet? I need to ask you about my mother." Her response came immediately. "Yes, I have something to show you." Pastor Jim's office smelled like old books and coffee. He sat behind his desk with his hands folded, looking uncomfortable. Across from me, Cynthia perched on the edge of her chair like a bird of prey. Harold stood by the window, arms crossed. Marcus leaned against the bookshelf, scrolling through his phone with that bored expression he always wore. And then there was Aunt Marianne, Mama's older sister, sitting in the corner with her lips pressed into a thin line of disapproval. I'd been ambushed. "Thank you for coming, Elena," Pastor Jim said. He'd called me 2 hours ago, saying he needed to discuss Mama's memorial fund. I should have known better. "What's this about, really?" I asked. Cynthia spoke first. "It's about you trying to destroy our family." I looked at her calmly. "I'm trying to honor Mama's real wishes." "Her real wishes?" Cynthia's voice rose. "She signed that deed, Elena. She wanted me to have the house. But you can't accept that, can you? You've always been jealous that Mama and I were close at the end." Close. I let the word hang there. "Is that what you call it?" Harold pushed off from the window. "Elena, let's be reasonable. Your mother was elderly, she was ill, and Cynthia provided round-the-clock care while you," he paused deliberately, "visited occasionally." The accusation stung because it wasn't entirely false. I hadn't been there every day, but that was because every time I tried to visit, I was turned away. "I tried to visit," I said. "I called every single day." "And Mama told us she didn't want to see you," Cynthia shot back. "She said you were too busy with your perfect life to care about her when she was healthy, and now that she was dying, you suddenly wanted to play the devoted daughter." "That's a lie." "Is it?" Aunt Marianne spoke for the first time. Her voice was cold. "Because I called you last Christmas, Elena, and you said you couldn't make it to Mama's house. Too much work, you said." My chest tightened. "I had pneumonia, Aunt Marianne. I was in the hospital." "Convenient excuse," Marianne sniffed. I looked at Pastor Jim. "Did you know about any of this? Did Mama ever tell you she didn't want to see me?" He shifted uncomfortably. Rose did seem conflicted. Cynthia mentioned there was some family tension that Cynthia created, I said, by isolating our mother, by controlling who could visit, who could call. "Oh, here we go," Marcus interrupted, finally looking up from his phone. "The conspiracy theories. Jesus, Elena, you sound paranoid." "Marcus, stay out of this," I said. "Why should I? You're accusing my mother of what, exactly? Elder abuse?" He laughed. "That's rich. Mom gave up everything to take care of Grandma. Her time, her money." "Her money?" I stood up. "Let's talk about money, Marcus. Let's talk about the $47,000 that disappeared from Mama's account in the last 5 months. The room went silent. Harold's expression didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes. Those were legitimate expenses. Medical care, facility fees. "Cash withdrawals," I said, "made out to cash, no receipts, no documentation." "How dare you?" Cynthia whispered. She stood too, trembling or pretending to tremble. "How dare you accuse us of stealing when we sacrificed everything?" "Sacrificed," I repeated. "Is that what you call threatening to put Mama in a state facility unless she signed over her house?" Cynthia's face went white. I don't know what you're talking about, she said, but her voice was too high, too fast. Don't you? I pulled Mama's diary from my purse and held it up. Because Mama wrote it all down. Every threat, every manipulation, every time you or Harold or Marcus kept her from calling me. Harold moved fast. He snatched the diary from my hand before I could react. This is private property. That belongs to me, I said. Give it back. It belongs to Cynthia. Everything in that house belongs to Cynthia now. Harold flipped through the pages. And this? This is the confused ramblings of a sick elderly woman. It proves nothing. And it proves duress, I said. It proves Mama was being coerced. It proves she had dementia, Harold interrupted. Paranoid delusions are common in elderly patients. Ask any doctor. Pastor Jim cleared his throat. Perhaps we should all take a breath and... No. Marcus stepped forward. His voice was low, dangerous. I think Elena needs to understand something. My mom has that deed. It's legal. It's binding. And if Elena keeps pushing this, keeps dragging our family through the mud, keeps making wild accusations... He paused. Well, Grandma wasn't the only one with secrets. Was she, Elena? My blood ran cold. What are you talking about? Your business. Those tax returns from 2019. The ones that were, let's say, creative with their deductions. He smiled. It would be a shame if the IRS got an anonymous tip. You're threatening me. I'm reminding you that everyone has something to lose, even you. Robert would be furious if he knew they were threatening me, but I couldn't show fear, not now. Get out of my way, Marcus. He didn't move. We stood there, inches apart. I could smell the cigarette smoke on his clothes, see the calculation in his eyes. Finally, he stepped aside. I looked at Pastor Jim. I thought you were a man of God. I thought you cared about truth and justice. Elena, But you're just like the rest of them, willing to believe whatever's convenient. I grabbed my purse. Keep the diary, Harold. Make copies. Because when this goes to court, I want the judge to see exactly how much you were willing to steal from a dying woman. I walked out. Behind me, I heard Cynthia start to cry, loud, theatrical sobs, playing the victim again, playing for Pastor Jim's sympathy. Let her. I had other plans. The Facebook post appeared that night. I was home in Lexington, sitting at the kitchen table with Robert, when my phone started buzzing. Text after text, notifications, messages from people I hadn't heard from in years. I opened Facebook, and there it was. Posted by Marcus Drake, shared to the Cape Cod community group. 14,000 members. Family betrayal. My grandmother just passed away after a long illness. In her final months, my mother Cynthia sacrificed everything to care for her, quit her job, spent her savings, was there 24/7. Grandma was so grateful that she signed her beloved summer house over to my mom as thanks. But now my Aunt Elena is trying to contest it. She barely visited while Grandma was alive, but now that there's property involved, suddenly she cares. She's even spreading lies about elder abuse to steal what my grandmother wanted my mom to have. This is what greed looks like. Please share so people know the truth about who Elena Martinez really is. Below the post were photos. Cynthia at Mama's bedside, holding her hand. Cynthia at the funeral, crying. Cynthia at Sunset Palms, helping Mama into a wheelchair. The comments were already rolling in. So sad. Family is everything. Your poor mother, after all she did. Money brings out the worst in people. I know Elena Martinez always thought she was stuck up. I felt Robert's hand on my shoulder. Don't read them. But I couldn't stop. Comment after comment, strangers and acquaintances alike, tearing me apart based on Marcus's lies. Then I saw one that made my stomach drop. From Joanna Peters, Mama's former book club friend. I always wondered why Elena stopped coming around. Now we know. Once Rose couldn't do anything for her anymore, she disappeared. Shameful. They're destroying my reputation, I whispered. Let them. Robert said. You know the truth. That's what matters. But it wasn't just about truth. It was about credibility. When this went to court, when I had to convince a judge that Cynthia had coerced Mama, what would they see? They'd see a daughter who barely visited. They'd see a grieving sister being attacked. They'd see Marcus's post, shared and reshared, becoming the narrative. My phone buzzed again. A text from an unknown number. Cove Coffee Shop, tomorrow 9 a.m. I have what you need. Lucia. I arrived 15 minutes early. The coffee shop was nearly empty, a few remote workers on laptops, an elderly couple sharing a muffin. I ordered tea I didn't want and sat by the window watching the parking lot. Lucia arrived exactly at 9. She looked tired, older than her 47 years. She wore jeans and a sweater, no makeup. Her eyes scanned the shop before she sat down across from me. Thank you for meeting me, I said. I should have reached out sooner. She wrapped her hands around her coffee cup. But I was scared. And then Rose died, and I thought, maybe it doesn't matter anymore. It matters. I know. That's why I'm here. She took a breath. Elena, I need you to understand something. I've been a nurse for 23 years. I've seen families fight over money. I've seen children neglect their parents. But what I saw Cynthia do to your mother, she shook her head. I've never seen anything like it. Tell me. It started about 4 months ago. Before that, Cynthia was just normal family. She visited. She was pleasant. But then something changed. She started telling the staff that Rose was confused, that she had dementia, which wasn't true. Your mother was sharp as a tack. But Cynthia would tell us that Rose forgot conversations, that she was making things up. Gaslighting her. Exactly. And then Cynthia put herself on the approved visitor list and removed everyone else, including you. She told us you and Rose had a falling out, that Rose didn't want to see you. That was a lie. I know that now, because I heard Rose crying one night, asking for you, begging to call you, and when I offered her my phone, Cynthia walked in and... Lucia's voice broke. She grabbed it out of my hand and told me I was confusing her mother. My hands clenched around my teacup. The worst part, Lucia continued, was watching Rose shut down. She stopped asking to call you, stopped fighting. She just gave up. Like she'd realized no one was going to help her. Someone should have helped her, I said, trying to keep my voice even. I tried. I reported it to my supervisor. But Cynthia was so convincing, and Harold, he was always so polite, so professional. He'd explain that they were just managing Rose's care and that families go through difficult times. My supervisor said to stay out of it. But you didn't. Lucia reached into her purse and pulled out her phone. 3 weeks ago, I was making my rounds late at night. I heard shouting from Rose's room. I looked in and she unlocked her phone. I started recording. She turned the screen toward me. The video was shaky, shot from a doorway, but I could see everything. Mama in her bed, looking small and frail. Cynthia standing over her holding papers, and Cynthia's voice, sharp and cruel. Sign it, Mother. Sign it right now, or I swear to God I will have you transferred to Meadowbrook. Do you know what Meadowbrook is? It's where they put people nobody wants. No private room, no cable TV, just you and 20 other demented old people in a warehouse waiting to die. Is that what you want? Mama's voice, so quiet I could barely hear it. Please, Cynthia, let me talk to Elena. Elena doesn't care about you. She has her own life. I'm the one who's here. I'm the one who gave up everything. Cynthia grabbed Mama's wrist. Now sign the goddamn paper. The video ended. I couldn't speak, couldn't breathe. That was my mother. That was my sister. That was the truth. I have 2 more, Lucia said quietly. One of Harold coaching her on what to say to the notary, and one of the actual signing where you can see Cynthia holding Rose's wrist. Why didn't you go to the police? I did. I filed a report with Adult Protective Services 2 weeks ago, but by the time they scheduled an investigation, Rose had died, and without her testimony. She looked at me with desperate eyes. That's why I need you to use these. To make sure what they did matters. To make sure your mother's suffering means something. I took the phone with shaking hands. Can I have copies of these? I'll email them to you, all three, but Elena. She leaned forward. Be careful. Harold Drake is dangerous. I looked him up. He's been disbarred. He's got complaints filed against him. He doesn't care about rules or laws. He only cares about winning. So do I said. Rebecca Walsh's law office sat on the third floor of a converted textile mill in downtown New Bedford. Through the windows, I could see the harbor and the fishing boats bobbing in the gray water. The office itself was all business. Law books, filing cabinets, a massive desk covered in case files. Rebecca herself was 52, with steel gray hair cut short and sharp brown eyes that missed nothing. She'd been recommended by Thomas Chen as the toughest elder law attorney in Massachusetts. When I called, she'd fit me in the same day. Now she sat across from me, reading Mama's diary for the second time. Her jaw was clenched. This is textbook elder financial abuse, she said finally. Isolation, intimidation, exploitation of a vulnerable adult. She set the diary down. And these videos from the nurse, Elena, these are devastating. I've been practicing law for 26 years, and I've rarely seen evidence this clear. So we have a case? We have a case. A strong one. Rebecca opened her laptop and pulled up a document. Here's what we're going to do. First, we file an emergency petition to freeze the property transfer. We'll argue that the deed was obtained through duress and undue influence. The diary establishes a pattern of coercion. The videos show the actual abuse. The bank records prove financial exploitation. How long will it take? We'll file tomorrow. We should get a hearing within 2 weeks. She looked at me seriously. But Elena, I need you to understand what you're walking into. Cynthia and Harold are going to fight this with everything they have. They'll attack your character, your motives, your relationship with your mother. They'll try to paint you as the greedy daughter trying to steal from your grieving sister. They've already started. You should see what's on Facebook. Rebecca's expression hardened. Social media smear campaigns are Harold's specialty. I've dealt with him before. Different case, different client. He's a bully and a fraud, but he's smart. He knows how to manipulate public opinion. She leaned forward. Which is why we need every piece of evidence we can find. The diary and videos are excellent, but if we can get the security footage from Sunset Palms showing them preventing your visits, that would be... Can we do that? Get the footage? Absolutely. Sunset Palms is required to keep security recordings for 90 days. We'll subpoena them. She made a note. Made. I'll also need a complete list of everyone who witnessed Cynthia's behavior. Nurses, doctors, other visitors. And I need you to write down every interaction you had with your mother in the last year. Every phone call, every attempted visit, every text message. I felt a weight lifting. Finally, someone believed me. Finally, someone was fighting back. What about the threats? I asked. Marcus threatened to report me to the IRS for tax fraud. Rebecca smiled grimly. Let him try. Frivolous reports to the IRS are actually a crime. If he does it, we'll add it to the list of charges. She paused. Is there any truth to what he said? About your 2019 tax returns? No. My accountant is meticulous. Everything is documented and legitimate. Good. Then they're bluffing. She closed her laptop. Elena, here's what's going to happen. We're going to hit them hard and fast. File the petition, freeze the transfer, depose everyone involved. By the time we're done, Cynthia and Harold are going to wish they'd never touched your mother's estate. I don't want revenge, I said. I just want justice. Sometimes, Rebecca said, they're the same thing. 2 days later, Rebecca called me with news. We got the security footage, she said. All of it, 6 months' worth. Elena, you need to come to my office and see this. I drove down that afternoon. Robert wanted to come with me, but I told him I needed to do this alone. Some things you have to witness with your own eyes. Rebecca had set up her laptop with the footage queued up. I've marked the relevant timestamps, she said. There are dozens of incidents, but I pulled the most damning ones. She hit play. The first clip showed the hallway outside Mama's room. The timestamp read, June 14th, 2:47 p.m. I watched myself walk up to the door, carrying flowers. Before I could knock, Cynthia appeared from inside the room. The footage had no sound, but I remembered that conversation perfectly. "She's sleeping, Elena." "I'll wait." "No, she needs rest. Come back tomorrow." On the screen, I watched myself hesitate, then leave, the flowers still in my hand. "That's the first one," Rebecca said. "June 14th? There are 3 more just like it." She showed me. June 22nd, Marcus blocking the door, shaking his head. July 3rd, Cynthia again, this time with a nurse who looked uncomfortable but said nothing. July 19th, Harold himself, smooth and professional, explaining that Rose isn't feeling well today. 4 times, 4 documented times they'd turned me away. "Now watch this," Rebecca said. The next clip was dated August 2nd, 3:15 p.m. Harold Drake walked into Mama's room carrying a briefcase. The timestamp in the corner ran as he stayed inside. 20 minutes, 45 minutes, an hour, and 12 minutes. When he emerged, Mama appeared in the doorway behind him. Even in the grainy black and white footage, I could see her face. She looked destroyed. "What was in that briefcase?" I whispered. "We're going to find out," Rebecca said. "But look at the pattern. Harold visited 17 times in those last 3 months. Each time, he stayed for over an hour. Each time, he carried that briefcase. And each time, the security footage shows your mother becoming more withdrawn afterward." She played another clip. This one showed Cynthia and Marcus standing in the hallway, having what looked like an intense conversation. Marcus was on his phone, showing Cynthia something on the screen. She nodded, smiled. Then they both went into Mama's room. "This was September 8th, Rebecca said, 2 weeks before your mother signed the deed. I had a digital forensics expert analyze the footage. Look at what Marcus is holding." She zoomed in on the image. The quality was poor, but I could make out the phone screen. It showed a document, legal text, a property deed. "They were planning this," I said, "for weeks, maybe months." "Yes." Rebecca closed the laptop. "Elena, this footage proves premeditation. It proves a conspiracy to isolate your mother and coerce her into signing. Combined with the diary, the videos from Nurse Lucia, and the financial records, we have an overwhelming case." "When do we file?" "Tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. The petition goes to Judge Margaret Chen. No relation to your Thomas, but she's known for being tough on elder abuse cases." Rebecca stood up. "And Elena? After we file, things are going to get ugly. Cynthia and Harold are going to realize they're cornered. Cornered animals are dangerous." "I'm ready." "I hope so," Rebecca said, "because they're not going down without a fight." I was leaving Sunset Palms an hour later when Marcus appeared. He stepped out from between 2 cars in the parking lot, blocking my path to my vehicle. It was dusk, the lot nearly empty. The security lights hadn't come on yet. "We need to talk," he said. My heart started pounding, but I kept my voice steady. "I have nothing to say to you, Marcus." "Yeah, well, I have plenty to say to you." He moved closer. He was bigger than me, younger, and there was something dangerous in his eyes. "You need to drop this lawsuit. Whatever you think you know, whatever you think you have." "I have everything," I interrupted. "I have your grandmother's diary. I have video of your mother abusing her. I have bank records showing the theft. I have security footage showing you and Cynthia turning me away from my own mother's room." His face flushed. "You're making a huge mistake." "No, Marcus, you made the mistake. You and your mother and Harold. You thought you could steal from a dying woman and get away with it." "She wanted Mom to have the house." His voice rose. "Grandma knew Mom needed it, knew Mom had sacrificed." "Your mother sacrificed nothing. She tortured a helpless woman for months so she could steal her home." Marcus grabbed my arm, hard. "You self-righteous bitch. You think you're so much better than us, don't you? With your perfect life and your successful business, let go of me. Or what? He squeezed harder. You going to call the cops? Tell them what? That we had a conversation in a parking lot? I reached into my pocket with my free hand and pulled out my phone. I'd been recording since the moment he appeared. I'm going to tell them that you assaulted me, I said calmly. Which you did. On camera. With audio. While threatening me to drop a legal case. That's witness intimidation, Marcus. That's a crime. His eyes went to the phone. I could see the calculation happening. Should he grab it? Destroy it? Go ahead, I said. Try to take it. I've already uploaded it to the cloud. My lawyer has access. So does my husband. So if anything happens to me, if I have any accidents, if my house gets broken into, it's all documented. He let go of my arm like I'd burned him. You're going to regret this, he said, backing away. My mom is going to destroy you in court. Everyone's going to see what kind of person you really are. Good, I said. Let them look. Let them see everything. Because the truth is on my side, Marcus, and no amount of lies or threats or Facebook posts is going to change that. I got in my car and locked the doors. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely get the key in the ignition. Marcus stood there in the parking lot, watching me with hate in his eyes. I drove away, checking the rearview mirror every few seconds to make sure he wasn't following. When I got home, Robert took one look at my face and pulled me into his arms. It's getting worse, I said into his shoulder. I know, sweetheart. But you're winning. They wouldn't be this desperate if they weren't losing. He was right. I knew he was right. But that night, lying in bed, I couldn't stop seeing Marcus's face. The rage, the desperation. Rebecca had warned me. Cornered animals are dangerous. Tomorrow we'd file the petition. Tomorrow the real war would begin. I just hoped I was ready for what came next. The courtroom was smaller than I'd expected. Oak paneling, fluorescent lights, about 30 seats for observers. Most were empty except for a few court reporters and one elderly couple who seemed to have wandered in by accident. And Cynthia, Harold, Marcus, their lawyer, a woman named Patricia Vance who'd made her career defending white-collar criminals. They sat on the left side of the room. I sat on the right with Rebecca. The distance between us felt like a canyon. Judge Margaret Chen entered precisely at 9 a.m. She was in her early 60s, Chinese-American, with reading glasses hanging on a chain around her neck. Her reputation preceded her, fair but merciless with liars and frauds. This is an emergency petition to freeze a property transfer, she began, looking at her notes. Filed by Elena Martinez, seeking to invalidate a deed transferring property from her deceased mother, Rose Martinez, to her sister, Cynthia Drake. Ms. Walsh, you're representing the petitioner? Rebecca stood. Yes, Your Honor. And Ms. Vance, you're representing the respondent, Mrs. Drake? Patricia Vance stood, smooth and polished. Yes, Your Honor. And I'd like to state at the outset that this petition is without merit. Mrs. Drake's mother signed the deed of her own free will, with full mental capacity, witnessed and notarized. This is simply a case of a disappointed family member trying to overturn a legitimate transfer because— I'll decide what this case is about, Judge Chen interrupted. Ms. Walsh, present your evidence. Rebecca opened her briefcase. Your Honor, I have multiple forms of evidence demonstrating that Rose Martinez was subjected to systematic elder abuse, financial exploitation, and undue influence in the months leading to her death. First, I'd like to submit Rose Martinez's personal diary. She handed copies to the judge and to Patricia Vance. This diary covers the period from March through September of this year. In it, Rose Martinez documents repeated threats by her daughter Cynthia Drake and son-in-law Harold Drake to place her in substandard care facilities unless she signed over her property. Judge Chen began reading. The courtroom was silent except for the turning of pages. I watched Cynthia's face. She was pale, her hands clenched in her lap. After 5 minutes, the judge looked up. This is quite detailed. Ms. Vance, do you dispute the authenticity of this diary? Patricia glanced at Harold, who whispered something to her. Your Honor, we'd need a handwriting expert to verify. I can verify it right now, I said, standing before Rebecca could stop me. My mother and I had a code. When either of us was in danger or being coerced, we'd place a small dot above the first letter of our signature. That diary has Rose's authentic signature on the inside cover, with the dot. The same dot that appears on the property deed, signaling to me that she was being forced. Judge Chen examined the diary cover, then asked to see the deed. She held them side by side, pulling out a magnifying glass. I see the mark you're referring to, she said slowly. Ms. Vance, do you have an explanation for this? Your Honor, this supposed code is just the petitioner's interpretation of what could be an ink smudge or— It's not a smudge, the judge said sharply. It's deliberately placed in the exact same position on both documents. She set down the magnifying glass. Continue, Ms. Walsh. Rebecca introduced the bank records next. Thomas Chen was called as a witness and testified about the systematic withdrawals, Harold's unauthorized access to Rose's accounts, and the total of $79,000 that disappeared. Patricia tried to argue that the withdrawals were for Rose's care, but she couldn't produce a single receipt. Not one. Then came the security footage from Sunset Palms. The bailiff dimmed the lights and set up a screen. Rebecca played 4 clips showing Cynthia and Marcus turning me away from visiting my mother. Your Honor, Rebecca said, these clips demonstrate a pattern of isolation. The respondents deliberately prevented Elena Martinez from seeing her mother, then used that forced absence to claim Elena was an absent daughter who didn't deserve inheritance. Judge Chen's expression grew darker with each clip, but nothing prepared the courtroom for what came next. Your Honor, Rebecca said quietly, I now need to play video evidence that is disturbing in nature. It shows elder abuse in progress. I want to warn everyone in the courtroom. She played Lucia's first video. Cynthia's voice filled the courtroom. Sign it, Mother. Sign it right now, or I swear to God I will have you transferred to Meadowbrook. I heard someone gasp. I turned and saw it was Marcus. He'd gone white. Mama's tiny voice. Please, Cynthia, let me talk to Elena. Elena doesn't care about you. She has her own life. I'm the one who's here. I'm the one who gave up everything. Now sign the goddamn paper. The sound of Cynthia grabbing Mama's wrist. Mama's small cry of pain. The video ended. The silence in the courtroom was absolute. Judge Chen removed her glasses slowly. She looked at Cynthia with an expression I couldn't quite read. Disgust? Fury? Both? Mrs. Drake, she said, her voice ice-cold, do you deny that this is your voice on the recording? Cynthia stood shakily. Tears were streaming down her face. Your Honor, you have to understand I was stressed, I was exhausted. Caring for my mother was so hard. That's not what I asked. Is that your voice? Yes, but— And is that you grabbing your mother's wrist and forcing her to sign a document? I didn't force her. I was helping her hold the pen. Ms. Walsh, the judge interrupted. Do you have the other videos you mentioned? Yes, Your Honor. Play them. The second video showed Harold coaching Mama on what to tell the notary. The third showed the actual signing. Cynthia's hand wrapped around Mama's wrist, controlling the pen, while Mama's face showed nothing but defeat and fear. When the lights came back on, Cynthia was sobbing openly. Harold sat rigid, his jaw clenched. Judge Chen looked at Patricia Vance. Counselor, do you have any response to this evidence? Patricia stood, but for the first time she looked uncertain. Your Honor, my clients. They were under significant emotional stress during this period. Mrs. Drake loved her mother and— Your client abused her mother, Judge Chen said flatly. On camera, repeatedly. She turned to Rebecca. Ms. Walsh, you mentioned Harold Drake's background. Elaborate. Rebecca stood. Yes, Your Honor. Harold Drake was disbarred in 2016 for forging client signatures on real estate documents. He was convicted of fraud and served 18 months probation. This is not his first time manipulating vulnerable people into signing documents. She handed up another file. This contains records of 3 civil complaints against Mr. Drake for similar conduct, pressuring elderly clients to sign over property, falsifying documents, undue influence. There's a pattern here, Your Honor. Judge Chen read through the file. With each page, her expression grew grimmer. Finally, she set it down and looked directly at Harold. Mr. Drake, you're aware that recording someone committing a crime is legal in Massachusetts? Harold's lawyer whispered to him, but he shook his head. Yes, Your Honor. And you're aware that what these videos show, verbal abuse, physical coercion, financial exploitation of a vulnerable adult, constitutes elder abuse under Massachusetts general laws? He said nothing. I asked you a question, Mr. Drake. Yes, he said finally. I'm aware. Judge Chen turned to Cynthia. Mrs. Drake, your mother died 2 weeks ago. In the time since, have you attempted to sell or mortgage the property in question? Cynthia glanced at Harold. Patricia stood. Your Honor, my client invokes her Fifth Amendment right. That tells me everything I need to know, the judge said. She began writing in her notes. The scratching of her pen was the only sound in the courtroom. After what felt like an eternity, she looked up. I'm ruling as follows, Judge Chen said. First, the property transfer deed is declared invalid due to undue influence and duress. The evidence overwhelmingly demonstrates that Rose Martinez was coerced through threats, isolation, and psychological abuse. The property reverts to Rose Martinez's estate and will be distributed according to her original will. Cynthia made a sound like a wounded animal. Second, I'm freezing all assets in Rose Martinez's estate pending a full accounting of the withdrawals documented by Mr. Chen. Every penny will be traced. Third, and now her voice turned to steel, I am referring this matter to the Cape and Islands District Attorney for criminal investigation. The evidence presented today suggests multiple violations of Massachusetts elder abuse statutes, as well as possible fraud and financial crimes. She looked directly at Harold. Mr. Drake, given your prior conviction and the severity of the evidence, you should expect criminal charges. Harold's face had gone gray. This hearing is adjourned, Judge Chen said. She stood, and we all stood with her. As she left the courtroom, I heard Cynthia collapse into her chair, sobbing. Rebecca touched my arm. We won, she said quietly, but it didn't feel like winning. It felt like excavating a grave. We were on the courthouse steps when I saw them. 2 police officers walking up, their expressions serious. They went straight past us, through the courthouse doors. Rebecca and I looked at each other. Wait here, she said, and followed them inside. She came back 5 minutes later, her eyes bright. They arrested Harold, she said. There was already a warrant out. Turns out, he violated his probation by getting involved in financial transactions with vulnerable adults. The DA moved fast. Through the courthouse windows, I could see Harold being led out in handcuffs. His face was stone. He didn't look at anyone. Behind him came Cynthia, supported by Patricia and Marcus. She was still crying, her makeup ruined, her perfect facade shattered. For a moment, our eyes met. I expected to see hatred. Instead, I saw something worse. Defeat, brokenness, the look of someone whose entire world had just collapsed. She'd lost the house, lost her husband, at least temporarily, lost her reputation, and if the DA filed charges against her too, she might lose her freedom. I should have felt satisfaction, vindication. Instead, I just felt tired. Come on, Robert said, appearing at my side. Let's go home. As we walked to the car, I looked back one last time. Cynthia was sitting on the courthouse steps, her head in her hands. Marcus stood over her, looking lost and young and scared. This was justice, but it was also a family destroyed. I got in the car and closed my eyes. Tomorrow, I'd start the work of healing. Tomorrow, I'd think about what to do with the summer house, with Mama's legacy, with the future. But today, I just wanted to go home. 3 months later, the Cape was beautiful. It was late April, and the beach roses were blooming along Seswick Neck Road. I drove past them with the windows down, breathing in the salt air and the sweet smell of spring. The summer house appeared around the bend, white clapboard with blue shutters, exactly as I remembered from childhood, exactly as Mama had loved it. Rebecca had called that morning with the final update. Harold took the plea deal, she'd said. 18 months in minimum security, 3 years probation, and full restitution of the $79,000 he stole. Plus, he's permanently barred from any position of financial authority over vulnerable adults. And Cynthia? No criminal charges. The DA decided she was as much Harold's victim as your mother was. He manipulated her gambling addiction, convinced her the theft was justified, controlled everything. Rebecca paused. She's in court-ordered therapy and a gambling recovery program. Part of her probation includes staying away from casinos and online gambling sites. I'd sat with that information, trying to feel something. Relief, satisfaction, vindication. All I felt was sad. Elena, Rebecca had continued, the estate is settled. Everything's been transferred to you as primary beneficiary. The house, the remaining assets, everything. It's done. Done. Such a small word for such a long battle. Now I stood in the driveway of the summer house, holding the keys. Inside, contractors had been working for 6 weeks, transforming the space according to my plans. The plans Mama would have loved. I unlocked the door and stepped inside. The house smelled like fresh paint and new wood. The old furniture was gone, replaced by comfortable couches and chairs arranged in conversation circles. The dining room had been converted into a meeting space. Upstairs, the bedrooms were now simple but welcoming guest rooms, each with its own bathroom and reading nook. And on the mantel, in a simple silver frame, was a photo of Mama. Young, maybe 40, standing on the beach with the sun behind her, laughing at something off camera. I'd found it in one of her albums. She looked free, happy. That's how I wanted to remember her. It's beautiful. I turned. Nurse Lucia stood in the doorway holding a box. She'd agreed to volunteer as a counselor for the retreat center, using her experience with elder care to help other families recognize and prevent abuse. Lucia, you came. Of course. She set down the box. It was full of books on caregiving, boundaries, and healing from family trauma. I wanted to help set up before the opening tomorrow. Tomorrow. The grand opening of Rose's Refuge, a free retreat center for women over 50 who were recovering from family betrayal, financial abuse, or elder exploitation. The name had come to me one night, lying awake, thinking about Mama. She'd always been a refuge for me. Now her house would be a refuge for others. How many women are coming? Lucia asked. 12 for the first weekend. We're keeping it small to start. I walked to the window overlooking the ocean. They'll have group sessions, one-on-one counseling, legal workshops on protecting themselves, and just space to breathe, to heal. Your mother would be so proud, would she? I wanted to believe that. I wanted to believe that turning her suffering into something meaningful would honor her memory. There was a knock at the door. I opened it to find someone I hadn't expected. Marcus. He stood on the porch, hands in his pockets, looking nothing like the angry young man who'd grabbed my arm in that parking lot. He'd lost weight. His eyes were clear. And he was trembling. Aunt Elena, he said, can we talk? We sat on the back porch, watching the waves. Lucia had discreetly disappeared into the house to give us privacy. Marcus didn't speak for a long time, just stared at the water, working up courage. I'm sorry, he said finally. I know that's not enough. I know it doesn't fix anything, but I need to say it. I'm sorry for everything I did, for helping Harold, for threatening you, for turning you away when Grandma needed you. His voice cracked. I was so focused on what Mom needed, what we needed, that I didn't see what we were doing to Grandma, to you, to ourselves. I watched a seagull circle overhead. Why are you here, Marcus? Because I need you to know that I've changed. I left Mom's place. I got a job, construction, nothing fancy, but it's honest work. I'm going to AA meetings, even though alcohol wasn't my problem. But the steps, They're helping me understand how I became someone I hate." He turned to look at me. "And because I need to ask if there's any chance you could forgive me. Not now, maybe not ever, but someday." This was the redemption Mama would have wanted, not revenge, not punishment, but genuine remorse and the chance to change. "Harold's in prison," I said. "Your mother's in therapy. You're working construction and going to meetings. Our family is shattered, Marcus." "I know." "But," I continued, "family isn't just about blood. It's about loyalty, honesty, showing up when it matters." I looked at him. "You didn't show up for your grandmother when she needed you, but you're showing up now. That counts for something." His eyes filled with tears. "What can I do to make it right?" I thought about it. "The grand opening is tomorrow. We need volunteers to help run the weekend, setting up meals, maintaining the grounds, being present for the women who come here. It's hard work, emotional work, and you'd have to hear stories about people like you, people who hurt their families." "I'll do it," he said immediately. "Whatever you need, for as long as you need it." "Then show up tomorrow, 6 a.m. And Marcus," I stood up, "don't let me down again." "I won't," he said. "I promise." The next morning, the house was full of life. 12 women arrived between 9 and 10 a.m. They ranged in age from 52 to 78. Each had a story. Each had been betrayed by someone they trusted, a child, a sibling, a spouse. Each carried the weight of that betrayal like a stone. I greeted them in the living room, Mama's photo watching over us. "Welcome to Rose's Refuge," I began. My voice shook a little, but I pushed through. This house belonged to my mother, Rose Martinez. In her final months, she was isolated, abused, and manipulated by people she loved, people who should have protected her. The women nodded. They understood. But before she died, my mother left me clues. She left me the truth, and with that truth, I was able to fight for her, to honor her, and to reclaim what she wanted to give, not just to me, but to all of us. This house, this refuge. I looked around the room at their faces. I saw pain. I saw exhaustion. But I also saw strength, survival. You're here because someone stole from you. Maybe they stole money or property. Maybe they stole time, or dignity, or peace. But they couldn't steal who you are. They couldn't steal your worth. I paused. This weekend is about reclaiming that worth, about understanding that what happened to you wasn't your fault, about learning to protect yourself and finding a path forward. One woman, Janet, 72, whose son had forged her name on a reverse mortgage, raised her hand. "What if we can't forgive them? What if the anger is still there?" "Then the anger is there," I said honestly. "Forgiveness isn't required. Healing doesn't mean pretending it didn't hurt. It means learning to carry the hurt without letting it destroy you." Another woman, Sarah, asked, "What about family? Do we just give up on them?" I thought about Cynthia, about Marcus standing on this porch yesterday, broken and sorry. "Blood makes you related," I said slowly. "But loyalty makes you family. Real family shows up. Real family protects. Real family tells the truth." I looked at each of them. And sometimes the family we need isn't the family we were born into. Sometimes we have to build our own. The women were silent, absorbing this. Then Lucia spoke up from the corner. "That's what this place is," she said softly. "A new family, built on truth and healing instead of obligation and guilt." The weekend unfolded like a gift. We had group sessions where women shared their stories. We had legal workshops where an attorney, Rebecca, who'd volunteered her time, taught them how to protect their assets and recognize manipulation. We had quiet time on the beach where women walked and talked and cried and laughed, and Marcus was there. Every morning at 6 a.m., setting up chairs, making coffee, listening. On the second day, one of the women asked him why he was volunteering. He told her the truth, that he'd helped abuse his grandmother and was trying to make amends. The woman, whose own grandson had stolen her retirement savings, stared at him for a long moment. Then she said, "Thank you for being honest. Thank you for changing." On Sunday evening, as the women were packing to leave, Janet approached me. "I've been holding on to this for 3 years," she said, pulling out a crumpled piece of paper. "It's a letter I wrote to my son. Every cruel thing I wanted to say, every bit of anger." She held it up, then tore it in half. "I don't need it anymore. I'm not giving him my peace, not anymore." She threw the pieces into the fireplace. We watched them burn together. After everyone left, I stood alone in the house. The sun was setting over the ocean, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold. Mama's favorite time of day. I heard a car pull up outside. Through the window, I saw a familiar figure get out. Cynthia. She stood by her car for a long time, staring at the house. She looked smaller somehow, fragile. The designer clothes were gone, replaced by jeans and a simple sweater. Her hair was pulled back. No makeup. I opened the door and walked out onto the porch. We looked at each other across the distance. "I'm not here to ask for forgiveness," she said finally. Her voice was hoarse, like she'd been crying. "I know I don't deserve it. I wanted to see what you did with the house. It's a retreat center now, for women recovering from family betrayal and elder abuse." She flinched. That's good. Mama would have liked that." "Yes," I said. She would have. Cynthia wrapped her arms around herself. "The therapist says I need to make amends, to take responsibility. So I'm saying it now, Elena. I'm sorry. I'm sorry for what I did to Mama, for what I did to you, for what I let Harold do to all of us." Tears streamed down her face. "I was so jealous of you, of everything you had, and I let that jealousy turn me into a monster. I didn't rush to comfort her, didn't rush to say it was okay, because it wasn't okay. But it was honest, and that was a start." "I can't forgive you yet," I said. "Maybe someday, but not yet. I understand. But," I continued, "if you want to help, if you want to do something meaningful, there's always work to be done here. The garden needs tending, the kitchen needs help during retreats. It's not glamorous. It's just service." Cynthia looked up, surprised. "You'd let me help?" "I'd let you try," I said. "One day at a time, one choice at a time. Prove you've changed, Cynthia. Don't just say it. Live it." She nodded, wiping her eyes. "Can I start next weekend?" "Yes." She got back in her car, but before she drove away, she rolled down the window. "Elena, thank you. For fighting for Mama. For doing what I should have done." I watched her drive away, then went back inside. Mama's photo caught the last rays of sunset. She looked so happy in that picture. So free. "We did it, Mama," I whispered. "We turned the pain into something beautiful." The house creaked around me, settling in for the night. And for the first time in months, I felt peace. Blood makes you related, I thought. But loyalty makes you family. And this house, this refuge, would be a family for anyone who needed it. Forever.